see Acrisure Stadium in the background. This is the site of the 2026 NFL Draft. So many incredible stories. The NFL is going to change drastically over the next few days. This is the walk that the players will take as they head out there onto the stage to hug the commissioner, hear their name announced. It's one of the most emotional, life-changing, exciting, franchise-changing moments that we ever see happen in the NFL. There's going to be an influx of fresh talent. They all begin that journey right there on that stage. We are so glad that you're with us here. It is a thrill to be at this event, one of our favorites ever. We can officially start because Swagoo did the wave. We got Swagoo, Mina Kimes, Ryan Clark, Dan Orlovsky. We have Adam Schefter and Peter Schrager as well throughout. Look at that
Dan,
smile.
why are your seats so high?
Because every time y'all make me drop my seat, every person I see in public goes, "You're so much taller than I thought," and I'm tired of it.
Oh, I can't
I'm taller than you, I'm taller than you, I'm significantly taller than you, and I'm taller than you.
Significantly? Let me see something really fast here.
Let the public.
Well, I can't go much higher, but all right. Anyway, Dan's tall. We got it. Let's get to a lot more here. We got to get to Adam Schefter as we've got a lot of stories that are flying around. This is Adam when all the news starts to happen. What is the latest 28 hours ahead of the NFL Draft?
Laura, everybody's waiting to see what the New York Jets do at number 2. With everybody knowing what the Raiders will do, the Jets effectively are on the clock right now. And will they choose David Bailey from Texas Tech, or will they go with the Ohio State pass rusher Orlovsky? There's no doubt the Jets are going to go with one of the edge rushers. Everybody in New York is on edge, waiting to see which edge they actually go ahead and pick. And then, of course, the questions will become, where does Jeremiah Love go? And there's been some speculation that the Arizona Cardinals, who would like to move Adam number 3, if they can, that Jeremiah Love would be in the conversation to go number 3. Doesn't mean they'll pick him, but they'll talk about him. But the Cardinals would prefer to trade out. If he doesn't go there, Tennessee at 4 would be in play. And Ty Simpson, of course, is expected to be the second quarterback picked in this draft. The question is, will it be in the first round, and where will it be? He continued to the first round, get the 5th-year option on Ty Simpson, and find a way to get a quarterback that a lot of people have linked to Arizona.
Adam, we're keeping you close by because, as we all know, breaking news happens on this day. It happens tomorrow and the next day. If anything happens, we're going right back to you. Keep us updated on everything. And let's key in on George Pickens just a little bit more, as there has been some news happening today with the Dallas Cowboys. He had a career year across the board in his first season in Dallas, right? Then in February, the Cowboys announced he would be placed on the non-exclusive franchise tag with a July deadline to sign a long-term deal. But earlier today, Dallas announced no long-term deal will be happening. Listen to this.
We've made a decision that we're going to have George play under the franchise tag, which won't be a first for us. So there won't be negotiations on a long-term deal. But you know, that's certainly not a first for this organization, and certainly won't be a first in the league. Let's start with the fact it's not easy. You know, having 2 receivers being paid top of the market. I mean, that's obviously a stretch, especially when you have other great players on your team. A quarterback that's been here being the highest paid player in this league for many years now. The other thing is the newness of George being here. And I think George has just done an amazing job. I mean, he's exceeded all expectations. I think anybody, or we wouldn't have gotten him for a 3rd-round pick.
Okay, so that was one part of the press conference there in Dallas today as we welcome in Jeff Darlington. You were covering all of it, and it was kind of wild and crazy. What was going on out there, Jeff?
Well, Laura, if the chaos, the surreal nature of this pre-draft press conference was any foreshadowing of what's to come tomorrow during the draft, the Cowboys is the place to be. That happened in the 34th minute, what you heard there from Stephen Jones of this pre-draft press conference, talking about the fact that they will not negotiate with George Pickens and they will have him play on the tag. That was after Jerry Jones is sitting at his lectern with the microphone in front of him and says, oh, look over there, the president's about to walk through the door. All of us look up and Bill Clinton walks through the door, and 10 seconds later is now greeting Jerry Jones, who stands up and trips over as he's trying to then greet Bill Clinton. I understand, stay with me here, this is all very bizarre. But again, this is a half hour into this press conference that we learned about George Pickens. Now, before that, though, Jerry Jones also elaborated on draft plans that could go in any direction. This is a team with 2 first-round picks very defensive needy team. We could see them going with a linebacker. We could see them going defensive back, maybe even pass rusher. But Jerry Jones also pointed out, again, before the Pickens stuff, that this is also a team that could go offense. Back in 2020, with the 17th overall pick, this was also a defensive needy team. They selected CeeDee Lamb. Jerry Jones pointed that out this time around. So the question becomes, what do they do with George Pickens if, say, they decide to draft a wide receiver at 12? Do they trade him during this draft and get a day 2 pick? There is so much on the table here in Dallas, and I thought that the tone of the press conference set the table for what's to come here at the Star.
Ooh. I like what you're throwing out there, Jeff. Great stuff. We'll be back with you in just a little bit. And Jeff mentioned what Jerry said potentially about offense. Brian Schottenheimer said at the league meetings, Marcus, that don't just get tied up in thinking that these early picks are going to be spent for the Cowboys on defense. But now that you consider this George Pickens element of it all, what do they need to do with those picks?
George Pickens is not shocking to me.
Yeah.
Dallas has a number of holes that need to be filled, and I'm not sure financially they wouldn't be too strapped with signing George Pickens and not being able to build out the rest of the team. Always remember this, and this is one thing, for as critical as I am about things that Dallas does, they draft as well as anybody in the NFL. And not only do they draft well, their rookies contribute right away. Now, they stick to a lot of line of scrimmage positions, a lot of places where guys can come in and be a factor, but even with CD, and having success with him as a wide receiver. I remember when they got Dez Bryant when I was in Dallas, and everybody was like, whoa, Dez Bryant became the #1 wide receiver. I don't think it would be crazy if Dallas went wide receiver in this draft. Not at all. And use for more capital if somebody wanted George Pickens that bad. It just would not be shocking to me. So when you think about what Steven said, I think that actually shows organizational competency. I think it makes sense. Now, it's not great for George. He had a phenomenal year. He wants to be paid as one of the highest wide receivers in the league. But Dallas doing business in this way with this particular situation, I think it's smart for this franchise for as many moves as I've been critical with them about.
Did you guys find it interesting that he said it's not easy to pay 2 wide receivers the top of the market? Because CeeDee in 2027, his cap hit is $46 million. Yeah. So he's kind of already telling us we're not paying both of them in the future. He just said it. So it's like
they can restructure the deal.
Yeah, I understand that, but for him to say that, I think makes a clear declaration. And then it makes me think, okay, what wide receiver has to be available at 12 for them to take that player?
I mean, it has to be, in my opinion, that Jordan Tyson falls.
Is that the only one?
He's the only one I feel you pick at 12, especially when you look at the Orville Reese, Sonny Styles of it, right? If those guys begin to fall and you have 12 and 20 and you feel like you can get a transcendent defensive player or a defensive player that plays right away and makes a difference, because none of these dudes come in my opinion, and become George Pickens last year. And in my opinion, that was also the reason this offense was so good. Not only his fit from an athletic standpoint, but the way that he took to Dak and also CeeDee Lamb.
Mina, a lot of people have said, and there have been reports that the Cowboys have an appetite to trade up potentially. If they do they trade up for an offensive plaer or a defensive guy?
I think it would be a defensive player, and I think it's because picking at 12, there's a very strong likelihood the premium defensive players, someone you mentioned, will be gone.
Yep.
As far as who I would trade up for me, if the draft shakes out this way, if David Bailey goes 2, if the Arizona Cardinals take Jeremiah Love, and the Giants take Downs or Styles, and Orville Reese starts falling, I really seriously consider picking up the phone and calling Cleveland at 6, who we know has an appetite to come down, because I think he fits not just the need, but also his upside is so tantalizing for this team. So, if let's say the Cowboys were to get Orville Reese, the comp everyone's going to make is Micah Parsons, right? But I actually think their new defensive coordinator, Christian Barker, coming from Philadelphia, switching to the 3-4, Zach Bond, how they used him in Philadelphia, I think is how I would.
So you would say trade up and play him off ball?
Play them both.
Yeah.
where the way they would use Bond his first year in Philadelphia, where, yes, he would play off the ball, but then they would walk him down to the edge.
Sure.
They would mug him up. Sometimes he would go. Sometimes they would. Those are all things that Arvell Reese did at Ohio State. And to me, as he transitions to becoming a full-time pass rusher, you can keep him on the field that way and he can make an impact.
I think it also says, or you also have to evaluate what they feel about DeMarvion Overshown and the way they want to utilize him, right? Being able to pair those two guys and make sure that they fit. Because I think a big piece of what we miss about defensive play, it is what you can do individually, but how those puzzle pieces fit together and the way Christian would want to use them.
Let me ask you this then. If let's in the hypothetical world, Arvell Reese is the trade-up option. Then that's a defense with two off-ball backers that are a little bit more like athletic players rather than big-bodied players in a conference that is more often than not a run-heavy conference.
Really good run defender, though.
Yeah.
Like
he's physical too.
Oh, dude,
but he's big enough with those.
And what he does too as well is hunt. Like the one thing about Reese is when the ball gets going sideline to sideline, and we saw this with Overshown as well, they hunt, they run with great angles, they understand pursuit. Yeah. And I think that sort of speed is what we saw from Philadelphia being so good.
It's also a position of need. They've been trying to patchwork this linebacker position through free agency. They've drafted guys. Obviously, it's been a long time since they felt good about a off-the-ball linebacker. Remember, Micah Neville was that guy. He was always up front. You go back to when they made the trade for the guy to Cincinnati, the backer, or Minnesota this year.
Logan Wilson.
Then you think about, you go back to when they drafted Jalen out of Notre Dame. That regardless of the injury, they've been trying to find and solidify this position for a while. I don't think it would be crazy for them to do that, but I'm going to tell you this, man. I think David Bailey is going to be a factor for whatever team he ends up as far as a guy that can get after the passer in these critical games in the fourth quarter where we see him come down to time and time again. Yeah. If David Bailey is there from Texas Tech.
He's not going to be there.
No,
I'm talking – but what I'm saying is if you're going to come up and he's there.
But does the Pickens news change anything draft-wise today? Because
yes, absolutely.
It has to, because while I believe it's a defensive draft for the Cowboys, there has to be a little bit of a thought of if that I would agree Tyson would be the guy. I don't think there's after hearing Stephen Jones's comments, there's a reasonable way that George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are Cowboys in 2000.
They're not going to be.
That has to play.
They're not going to be.
It would be shocking if George Pickens plays this year at all. You have to remember the ties to Michael Parsons' agent, David Mulligetta. This is 2 times the Dallas Cowboys has refused to work with him.
I do not believe that this caught David Mulligetta off guard. Yeah. That's number one. The other thing is, I go back to the linebacker spot. They've been trying to find a number 2 wide receiver forever.
Yeah.
In Dallas as well.
What's tricky for Dallas is no second-round draft pick. And I like the second-round wide receivers, but
you got to go get a player.
Right?
That's big news today.
Jordan Tyson would be a great fit.